You want to dive into the stories and myths behind Professor Scienza's new series, but Italian isn't your thing. No problem. You find all the conversation translated in English in the new Mama Jumbo Shrimp book, an Italian wine pilgrimage with Professor Attilio Scienza. Now available in English on Amazon.
Welcome to this special Clubhouse session of the Italian Wine Podcast. Listen in as members of the Italian wine community engage in fascinating conversations about contemporary wine topics. If you enjoyed the show, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com and remember to subscribe and rate the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your pods.
Hi everyone, this is Beatrice welcoming you to the Italian Wine Clubhouse Ambassadors Corner, one of the top-ranked shows on Italian Wine Podcast. Here, our ambassadors get the mic to interview their favorite producers with total freedom. And if you miss it live, no worries. It's all recorded and dropped later on the Italian Wine Podcast. Today's guest host is Stephanie Johnson. Stephanie is a wine writer and educator based in New York City. She holds the WSET Diploma in Wine and Spirits and is certified as an Italian wine expert by Vinitaly Academy. Her latest venture, SteepleJack, spotlights the heroic stories of Italian wine producers, blending deep expertise with compelling storytelling. Today, she's going to interview Patricia Tóth. So, Patricia, Stephanie, how you doing, girls?
Doing great.
Hi, Stephanie.
So, Stephanie, are you ready for our ritual question?
I'm ready.
How did you meet Patricia?
So I met Patricia quite a while ago, in 2012, for the first time. I was visiting Vittoria in southeast Sicily. That's a terrible mistake to make in Sicily. And I was visiting Arianna Occupinti, and she was going to hang out with Patricia that night, and she invited me to come along, and that's when I met you. So it's been a while.
Perfect. I'm loving already the energy of this interview, so it's time for me to meet myself. I'm turning over the floor to you, Stephanie. Have a nice interview, girls.
Thank you. All right, Patricia, let's get down to it. Can you just, first of all, let's start with the, overview picture here, the big picture. Can you give us a sense of your responsibilities as a winemaker with Planeta?
Yeah, that's a large picture, I would say. That's the good definition. So I was lucky enough to start to work with the Planeta family 21 years ago. And that was the moment when they started to expand their viticultural journey around Sicily. So from Menfi and Sambuca, where they started from and where they gained really great energies, they started this viticultural trip around the island, and I joined them when they opened in Noto and Vittoria on the southeastern corner. Two very different soils, two very different situations, and two heritage sites. So my job was a bit the startup of these estates as a winemaker. And then a few years later, and a few parties with Arianna later, I moved up to the Etna. And then we said, okay, it's enough from the new project. So then we made one more, obviously. There was a big fall in love with the project in Milazzo with the Mamertino.
Thank you. Great. Okay, so you cover a lot of ground still in terms of your winemaking with Planeta. You do a lot of, I think you told me one time you basically live in your car.
I do. I'm kind of the driving winemaker. I know the category has never been set up, and I'm a little bit disappointed about that, but that's what I'm doing. It was always, I think, more or less a 10-year time window to put together all these projects, to figure out the varieties, to figure out the spots, even if, for example, Vittoria and Noto are only like 50 minutes driving away from each other, but they are completely different new words with very, very different terroir situations. So we always started from zero to put together the whole story and just learn every detail and then figure out which will be the wine, which will be the team, and just develop these independent small estates around the island.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to see some of the other big family companies are doing the same thing, having multiple locations around the island of Sicily. But, I think what I'd like to do, because we all focus a lot, I think, in this country, at least, on Etna. That's kind of the sexy, category of the moment. And it really dominates for us kind of the eastern side of Sicily for the market, at least. But I would like to focus in on your smaller but super interesting project in Milazzo. And if people can look at a map, it's really a cool thing to look at. If you look at the very far northeastern corner of Sicily, you see Messina right across from Calabria. But if you go a little bit to the west, there's just this little thumb almost that sticks out into the sea, and that is the Capo di Milazzo, and that is where your vineyards are for La Baronia. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about that area, what makes it unique, and what wines you're doing there.
Yeah, that's a bit the end of the world as we know it. I think the geographical position of Capo Milazzo, it's really an extreme, though in a way it's the heart of a very important logistical spot for centuries now. So today, and it's easier to explain it, I think, seeing it from today, it is the spot from where the boats are leaving to go to the Aeolian Islands. In fact, that's the only easy way if you were not born as a drone to see our vineyards. A drone or a seagull, but we will explain it later. We are on the top of the peninsula of Capo Milazzo. This was back in time in a calcareous rock base and the Marne base, so it was sea origined, and actually it was also called the eighth of the Aeolians for a long while, but the origin is very different because it's not volcanic as most of the Aeolian Islands and the rocks in between those ones. So it has this sea base, then it gets connected to the mother island, to Sicily, with alluvial soils, Tyrrhenic sands and stones, river origin stones, which came down from the Peloritani mountain, which are the last higher mountain chain on the northeast side of the island. And this small rock gets connected to Sicily. To complete the sandwich of the soil there, which is really something multiply. It's a very, a complex club sandwich style of a soil, because when we started to work on it, we realized that the upper soil is also a sandy structure, but it is completely volcanic origin one. So the whole thing, the calcareous rock, the river origin stones, are then covered with 60 centimeters, 1 meter of volcanic sand. And this comes possibly or from a major eruption of Stromboli or from a major eruption of Vulcano. So that's how it starts. And why we ended up there and how we ended up there is then ligated to the older history of the place, because it is in the heart of the DOC Mamertino, which together with the DOC Faro are the two microdocks which are characterizing the area of Messina. One of it, Faro, is up in the mountain, and down in the bay, which goes from Tindari, or from Patti and Tindari, it goes right after Milazzo, it finishes. This bay area is the DOC Mamertino, and that was actually the call to do this fifth project with the family.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's, of course, a very small DOC. I feel like there's a little bit of awareness around here of the Faro DOC. People are a little bit familiar with that, and you see the wines here. But I think Mamertino is really not something that a lot of people know about or maybe have visited unless they happen to stop by on their way to Salina or something. But I think it's really interesting. And it also, because of these unique soils and this unique position that you have, you also are using, or you're growing a variety called Nocera. And, here in the Ambassadors Corner, we love nothing more than a really esoteric grape variety. So maybe you can talk to us a little bit about Nocera and its characteristics and how that fits in with the wines that you're working on.
Yeah, thank you for that word, esoteric. I think I will copyright, pay the copyright for that to you, and I will call the Nocera next week when I go to see the vineyard esoteric, and let's see how it reacts. It is a historical variety, and in fact, that's one more of the heritage stories what I spoke about before. So Nocera is ligated to the area of Messina for centuries. Since the first viticultural descriptions, we know that the area was producing this grape. And today it is mostly used in or planted in the area of Faro and Mamertino. Something is existing also outside, and I think the viticultural qualities of this variety is really designating it to be a very important variety in the future for Sicily. So from the physiological point of view, it's a beautiful grape. Nocera, possibly etymologically, the name is coming from the walnut, the noce word, because the berries are shaped a bit like walnuts. They have also a decent size. It has a bigger cluster. And I think it really brings every quality in one as a grape. It has tannins, it has velvety tannins, it has a good thickness, it has great color, it has very different aromatic compounds. And it reacts very interesting both on being grown on the mountain or both on being grown on the seaside. So I feel elasticity in this variety. I feel a lot of future in this variety, but obviously it's still at the moment a micro visible possibility for the future. In fact, just to go back to the first thing what you said about Etna versus these minor DOCs, I'm really thankful that you called us to speak about this area, because Etna absolutely is a huge love, but it's an easy, sexy topic. That's just to connect back to what you said, because it's an active volcano, because it has a lot of attraction. These minor areas, though, are there for centuries also, and I think they're really worth to have some spotlight on. And I really hope to do these things to have more and more people coming and getting curious about these extreme spots around.
Yeah, you can't really get more extreme than this place, and the views toward the Aeolian Islands are just stunning, and it's just a gorgeous place. But I remember when I was there, we were talking. You were telling me about Nocera, and it has all these great qualities. And I kept asking, well, why isn't it in more places? Why isn't it planted more widely? Why isn't it used in other places? Because, if it was kind of a low yielding grape, I could understand maybe they would give up on it. The farmers, the contadino would give up on it, but that's not the case apparently. And so do you think there's something specific about these very different soils that happen to occur in this corner of Sicily that are more conducive to growing Nocera, or is it just one of those quirks of history?
I think it's one of those mysteries of history, and this is, I think you understand that also if you're checking on the viticultural history of the Nocera, because before I just mentioned that it's present for centuries in the Messina area. But then very interesting to see that in the centuries, the variety or, very close belonging varieties to Nocera popped up in other production sites. So it seems like it was present in Calabria under the name of Barba del Sultano, the bird of the Sultan, which can be the shape of maybe recalled by the shape of the cluster. It popped up in France, in Provence, Beaujolais, called Extra Fertile Sucré. So it quite clearly they were pointing more on the yield than in other qualities. And then with the centuries, the production site of the Nocera gets straightened back to the area of Messina. So in this case, for me, as you said, there are some pretty easy understandings when some varieties stayed on one side, when they have some extreme sensibility or on one or the other condition in the production, but Nocera does not seem to have one. So I think it's a gem, which at the moment is mostly in the Messina area in Sicily, and we really hope that in the future it will populate a bit. But it's not just the Nocera; it's also we have some other sources for the future. I think the relic varieties. So the DOC Sicilia has worked a lot, and the Institute for the viticultural research in Sicily has worked a lot on the relic varieties. In 2019, 9 of them came back to production. Also from there, 3 of those varieties are supposed to belong to the Messina side. In fact, in the area, in the vineyard, we have planted some wines with Lucignola, Catanese Nera, and Vitrarolo. And also the Nero d'Avola, which is a very important part of the blend of the Mamertino wine, is adapting itself in a very interesting way to this seaside, seafront vineyard. And I think its personality is becoming very velvety and very thick and very inky and dark in this spot. So there is a lot in the area to be expressed.
That's really interesting because, Nero d'Avola is, sometimes we think of it just as this very monolithic variety, but it really does express so differently in different parts of the island. And I mean, it's not really planted at all on Etna that I know of, or, in the Northeast as much, but except here. And so it's really interesting how it expresses there in this velvety way. Patricia, can you give us more of a sense of what Nocera tastes like as a wine? I think you make a single variety, Nocera, and then you use it in a blend in Mamertino with Nero d'Avola. So can you talk about, just kind of the kind of sensual expression of Nocera and then how it interacts with Nero d'Avola?
You did not remember that the winemaker is always a worst person to speak about these fine-tuning details because we are annoyingly start with, is it good or not? But I already jumped this question that it's great. And I think Nocera is really playful, I would say, both in the nose, more in the mouth feeling than in the nose, maybe. Somewhere filled up, somewhere in between with black cherries, kind of like sour, smooth notes. And I would say that the area itself is also giving a big dash of one sensorial character, which is very umami kind, which is very algae kind, which is possibly very iodic note on the grape. So Nocera is really, I would say, movemented. It's really energetic. In the mouth, it's ruby red in every sense, ruby red and darker red, both in the taste and both in the color.
Yeah, and I remember when I was visiting, we tasted an older version of just one that had just a few years of age, and it really develops beautifully. And it gets these iodine notes, but I feel like it's just a shame that it doesn't grow in more places. And I feel like, as someone who has a little bit of pull with one of the largest, Sicilian wine producers, maybe you have some pull in like getting it planted in other places.
We are really hoping for. And yes, now you remembered me one very important detail. I think you were the first ever courageous person who came till Capo Milazzo, and we did, I think, the first ever vertical tasting of the Nocera, which has been existing. So I'm still appreciating this adventurous being of you. I think really both the history, the viticultural history of the area, and also the qualities of the varieties are we mentioned already 200 times the word history, and this is something which I think is connecting spiritually right off to have wines to be taken away, to be aged, to be part of the future also, and not just the past. So I feel big energies in the place, but not just because of the vineyards, but also because of the foundation we are collaborating with, and I think also because of the name and of the history, what is in the back of the area. Just if we want to get a bit deeper in the word Mamertino, I think that's also something extremely exciting.
Yeah, go ahead. Dig into it.
Because I didn't meant to authorize myself to you to talk about it deeper, but I think I succeeded. Just to give you the background of the day when Alessio Planeta arrived back to Memphis, and he said, okay, I think there is a 5th project. We have to jump in. And we looked at him and he said, it is history. And okay, so we started to learn about the word Mamertino. Also for us, it was completely unknown. just to give you a few numbers, today, after 15 years that we are present in the area, and after 11 years that we are vinifying wine there, or maybe 12 now, there is now a consortium finally, and we are 11 producers in it. And it's a few dozens of hectares only around. So really today it's something invisible. So also we had to learn a bit about Mamertino. And already the word itself, it's something fantastic because it is conserving the history of a population which later has disappeared. The Mamertini were actually the word itself from the Greek, the antique Greek. It means sons of Mars or sons of Mamerte, which was the Oscan god of war. And they were actually mercenary who were working in the first Punic Wars with the governor of Siracusa, with Agalode. And after his death, some of them stayed and some of them went back to Campania, where they were from. So that's the history of the name. And today, it's not a lot of things are conserving this name. Some products, like the wine, and some villages, like Galati Mamertino, for example. So you're jumping back into a pool of a very dense moment of history with the Punic Wars, which is driving you back to the 3rd century before Christ. And since then, this name is existing. And Plinio have described this wine as one of the favorite wines of Julius Caesar, together with the Falerno. So yeah, well, I think I will just slow down a bit because I could speak about this, I think, for hours and hours. But just to give you a hint, what was the first big call to go there and just to see what's happening there. And today, the area is actually belovingly taken care by a foundation. So this is the only vineyard actually where we are not owners, but we are renting this spot for 20 years with other 20 years of option from a foundation. This foundation is called Foundation of Barone di Lucifero, from a nobile family. They were owning the whole peninsula. And then from the 80s, this foundation and the association is existing. They are managing a villa building. They are managing some agricultural lands around and other private spots also. And from the incomes of this management, so renting out the lands, they are then creating summer camps and activities for children from bad social position and for handicapped people from all around Sicily. And they are doing gardening. They are teaching how to interact with animals. It's kind of like a small paradise. And in the middle of this, there were these 8 hectares of vineyards. So it was an absolute love. Old history, a bit lost story, try to bring back some energy in this whole thing and collaborate with the foundation.
Yeah, that's so. First of all, again at the Ambassadors Corner, we love to geek out on ancient history and the history of the varieties and where they came from. And so that's really, really interesting information. And then, but also the modern story of La Verona is super interesting with this foundation and the work that they're doing. And it's just such a unique place. Do you happen to know if the DNA of this variety, if it's like of Nocera, is it related closely to other varieties?
You know, all the Sicilian varieties are pretty much related in a cousin level to that one Calabrian white variety, which I'm in this moment failing to remember the name.
Montonico?
Yes, thank you. Exactly. Yeah. That's the relation, but I think there is not such a clear idea of the Nocera's genetics as the Nero d'Avola is pretty clear now, with the cousin level of relationship with the Sangiovese. But I will make some research on that.
That's okay. I just was curious because that's one of the things we study when we are working with VIA Academy. It's a lot about the genetic, history of varieties and their relationships to one another. But on another topic, when I was there with you and we were looking towards the Aeolian Islands, you were telling me a lot about the marina just below. You stand on quite a high cliff overlooking the Aeolian Islands, and there are some seagulls in the area. We encountered a particularly angry one that day, I remember. But But you were telling me below this, the marina below has some interesting stories.
It does. I actually think that the seagull was patient with us for a while, and then she decided, or he decided, that our time was over. So I think we were just standing and chatting for an hour above its nest. And at one moment, it was a very strong call to just let his family on its own. And this seagull is belonging to a major fauna which is around the estate. So first of all, the vineyards are already surrounded by an area which is protected Mediterranean bush. And then in 2019, something very, very important happens. All the bay under and around Capo Milazzo becomes an area marina protetta. This strongly protected seaside spots in Italy. And actually, this is the first ever wine made completely within the area of an area marina protetta. I can tell you that only in a few years, right after this legislation part came out, the whole area has become way cleaner how it was before. And it's super populated. The sea life is extremely interesting. I was so lucky just a few weeks ago. I went to Filicudi for 2 days, and we had some time to spend with a marine biologist, and we went out with their boat for a few hours, and it's something incredible. What the world, I think, is just learning about now, how the Aeolian Islands and the channel between the Aeolian Island and Sicily is rich in a sea fauna, from thousands of tunas, which are coming now in this period to reproduce themselves. The red tunas are getting into these bays. And really, we felt like an exceptional day. We've been swimming with these tunas, which are hundreds of them just swimming around us in spirals. There are a lot of dolphins, turtles, whales, sperm whales, which in these days, I think in the international press, it ended up that there is a group of sperm whales which are just crossing in this moment the Strait of Messina. And all this obviously had to be protected. So now there are only designated channels where motor boats can go. And, being in the heart of it with the vineyard, it's something delightful and spiritually very important. And obviously, it's always a lesson also how to insert ourselves to a ambient like this, how to be as tactful as it is possible and as invisible as it is possible, despite working a vineyard. And I think all these encounters with the wildlife, which we have lived and which we are living every week when we are going to this vineyard, are giving us a positive feedback on our existence and collaboration in this area.
Yeah, it is such a magical place, and I think that, again, we talk about how some of the other areas of Sicily receive much more press and attention, but to me, they are also, they merit that, but it's places like this to me that are just so off the beaten path that really, really are so special and fascinating. Just one last question, because we've reached our time limit. Do you export these wines from Martino, do the Nocera and the Martino? Could we buy them, let's say, here in the United States?
We do small production areas, small numbers, obviously, but we are really trying to open up some places on the shelves for these wines all around the world. Luckily, we have this great export team who are dealing with more than 80 countries around the world. And it was a challenge because first we thought that being niche makes it easy, but then we understood that being so small is also a limit on it. We have made some brainstorming on it with some producer friends also from other areas. And I think the question is also that we have to work on opening a spot on the shelves. And one thing we have once thought is the wines of the storm, the wines from vineyards all around the world which are facing the sea. And we did the tasting together with Roberto Santana from Envinate in Tenerife and with Stefano Amerighi from Cortona, but he's also a great connoisseur of wines from Corsica. And we had Marisa Cuomo and some other wines which are really like this, extremely facing the sea. And I think there is a very interesting fil rouge between them. So hopefully, if we are working enough hard on this topic, we can create a space on the wine shelves all around the world, which are then connected to this category which we dreamed about as a name, which can be wines from the ocean or wines from the sea.
That is a really interesting idea, and I hope it succeeds, because I find these wines, I just thought they were delicious when I was able to taste them. I think they're really interesting, but also just really a satisfying, delicious red wine. So if people can find them and try them, you should absolutely do so.
I think our team really came out with an exceptional label, which is also pretty much a team connecting with the other producers of the area. So the Nocera, if you will find it in some wine shops, it has the label, which is the marine navigation map of the whole area of Messina. So you can see both the Faro area and both the Mamertino, because the variety is present in both the DOCs. And then the Mamertino's label, they are also kind of like touch labels. So once you touch them, it's hard to release them. It's showing then in major detail the bay, which we mentioned before, the DOC Mamertino area down by Tindari and Milazzo. So they are pretty different. They are pretty hidden, obviously. But if you are looking for it with just the one part of the energies what we have put on trying to have it back on the shelves, you will find it.
Great. Well, I will look for it personally. And thank you, Patricia, for taking the time from your busy driving winemaker schedule to talk with us about this really, really fascinating corner of Sicily today.
Now, thanks both to you and both to the whole team of Italian Wine Podcast, because really it's a gift for us if we have the space to speak about these heritage sites and wines in Sicily.
Thank you so much for everybody who's spending time with us. For those who are interested to participate, just send us a DM through our Instagram or mail our Italian Wine Podcast producers at info@italianwinepodcast.com. Thank you so much again, Stephanie and Patricia, and this is a wrap from Italian Wine Podcast. Ciao, ciao!
Ciao!
Thank you.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, cin cin.